Kabiru's boss, Dr. Baumia, held a lecture at Central University. That is where he said, if the fundamentals are weak, the exchange rates will expose you. But he said one other thing that people tend to gloss over. He says for an economy like ours, the most important economic indicator is the exchange rate. So how can the leader of the party say this? And then the members of the party say that now the exchange rate doesn't matter. Yesterday, Afenyo was saying that we don't eat exchange rates. Look, because our economy is export dependent.
Okay, yes.
Because our economy, and what is the biggest contributor of inflation in Ghana? Isn't it exchange rate volatility?
Yes.
Because of our dependence on export, which is a regrettable situation and which needs to be cured. But it takes time. It's a medium to long-term activity. Exchange rate volatility has historically proven to be devastating for Ghanaian households. Look, when they took over power, the cedi was just around 4 cedis to $1. At a point in 2022, it went to 17 cedis on the forex market. By the time they left, it was around 16 cedis on the forex market, around 14, 15 cedis on the interbank market. It was a devastating decline in our currency. The effect was that every single item in this country went up in terms of prices.
Right.
What that does is that it increases inflation. That's how come we had 54.1% of inflation, which is hyperinflation. You went to the market and bought an item at this price. By evening, the price has gone up. When that happens, it eats into what you call disposable income. In other words, the money that you have to spend on yourself. And when that happens, it imposes suffering and hardships. And what we went through under the MPP has never been seen in recent Ghanaian memory. It is the worst economic situation in recent Ghanaian memory. Now, what caused it? Often, they say that, oh, President Mahama has gone to Harvard to say that COVID, it is not true. Look, let me disclose here. I was part of those who drafted that speech. So I have it on my computer. I can pull it for you.
So he never said that?
President Mahama said that. Listen.
Hold on.
President Mahama said, of course, there's no dispute that COVID affected every country.
Relax.
Even America and everybody was reeling.
Right.
But in Ghana's case, it was underlying macroeconomic mismanagement that exacerbated our situation. And if you want to know that, you do what you call a comparative analysis with our neighbors. There was no country in Sub-Saharan Africa that had the sort of economic indices we had. Our deficit was 15%. Look, COVID struck in 2019, if I'm not mistaken, right? 2019.
Yes.
The 2020 budget, which Ken Ofori-Atta read in November 2019, he said they would do a deficit of 5%. But when COVID struck, in July of 2020, by which time we had a full handle on COVID and knew its effect and everything, he went back to Parliament. In fact, at that time, we had even done the lockdown and eased it because COVID had eased substantially. He went back to Parliament and said that because of COVID, it will affect our finances. So he was raising the deficit target to 11%. No, 10%, I think. By 2020 December, after the elections, they had done a 15% deficit. So it is not that they went into that election not anticipating the effects of COVID. They themselves had gone to revise the budget estimates in order to accommodate the effects of COVID. But what happened was that because there was an election, they got into reckless mood. Look, government's primary duty during COVID was to ensure that it did things to stop the spread of the disease. And then specific vulnerable groups who were affected were catered for. So when government did the lockdown, people who were traders, whose livelihoods depend on daily economic activity, government shared food for them, did they not?
Right.
In the space of 2 to 3 weeks, they had lifted it. And so people went back to basics and were trading and earning income. They were going about sharing money from confetti from the national coffers. I was contesting election in AAK. People who were not business owners or engaged in any form of business were receiving so-called business support. 5,000 cedis, 2,000. Indeed, they are former, I think she's still perhaps their deputy Northern Regional Chairperson. She's a woman, Felix or something.
Yes, that's the name.
She said that they gave each executive about 170,000 Ghana cedis, regional executive, and then gave constituency executives 100,000 Ghana cedis. If you share money from the national kitty like that, how are you not going to incur this sort of deficit? So they didn't need to do more beyond ensuring that we had vaccines and that we had a healthcare system that was robust and operating. And specific areas where they were, for instance, teachers, nurses who were not going to school or who were not going to the hospital. The truth is that in the year, we had programmed to pay them anyway. So paying them their salary while they were sitting at home was not a variation from what had been budgeted for. So it was not going to impose any additional burden on the coffers. You understand the point I'm making? But it was recklessness that led to that situation. And that recklessness dovetailed into suffering that is unparalleled in Ghana's history. And the biggest problem was the lack of financial discipline. Their inability to say that, look, I have budgeted for this thing. I am not going to yield to pressure to cave in, to destroy, because the effect of yielding is catastrophic, which is what we all saw.